Welcome everybody to this session, IT Checklist for Security of Remote Work at SMBs. Really, this is going to focus on securing data. I'm fortunate to be joined by my colleague, David Bjurman-Birr, a security architect, and my name is Tim Sinclair. I'm a principal program manager in the M365 team on security and management. There is a reference here in the IT checklist, which we were just going to really go through, but I wanted to have this link out here for those getting the deck afterwards so you could actually follow up. This is really to think about what's top of mind for you as partners. As we know, most small businesses are really supported by partners, and partners bring an array of services to SMBs to make them successful. But as you look at your business, many things you're trying to think about is how are you actually driving growth at the time when everyone's working from home? I mean, there's lots of interesting opportunities and, of course, plenty of challenges to go through that. As we moved very fastly to many people working from home, the key thing that comes to mind is how do we manage risk? Because the move to the cloud and the move to remote work happened fast. You know, one partner actually told me, rather than measure twice and cut once, we kind of cut, and now we're measuring to try to figure out how to make sure things are very, very secure. And within doing that, very, very fast transition. There's a lot of thought that needs to go into how do you reduce your cost, make sure that you're driving profitability, and continuing to provide more value to your overall customers. With that context in mind, there's a lot of other aspects that you need to keep in mind. And one of them is that as we move very fast, there's a lot of security openings that are there. And the FBI certainly has cited a lot of numbers at a 4 to 5x of the actual security breaches that are being attacked are really around the small businesses. And so there's a lot of small businesses, and you as partners want to reduce that risk, not only for your customers, but in addition for yourselves as well. So thinking about that, how do you drive the right cybersecurity solution as well as manage your cost and give the highest value to your customers? So Microsoft has several offerings within this area. You probably know about M365 Business Basic and then Business Standard, but we're going to focus really on the right one, which is Microsoft Business Premium. It's a full suite, handles the cloud services, the desktop apps, and most importantly, the advanced security. This is for $20 a month per seat per user. And if we look at the benefits that come from this, and we'll drill into that just slightly here, the integration across the full stack of all of these from one vendor provides some interesting benefits as well as some cost savings values. Let me talk about the way to think about this offering. One of them is how do you collaborate in real time? And that's very, very much about things that we see with Teams and SharePoint. And that it was the remote work default, is how do we get to collaborate in a remote world quickly? And then you need to think about this securing the identity, not just security all up, but let's just start with the identity to make sure that everything is protected there. And of course, cyber threats cutting across areas such as your email vectors, your data vectors, et cetera, is super critical to be able to add into that. And then finally, but not least important, is really managing the devices and securing the endpoints themselves. Now, I'll kind of put all of these down there just as a detail. And essentially, I covered these, but within the far left, you really get quite a bit of video conferencing, group chat, the ability to co-author documents and share information very, very, very easily, and the opportunity to have some voice add-ons as well. The other interesting thing that you have in the second column, which is really very, very important, as all of you know, is just securing those identities. And MFA, multi-factor authentication, is just one of the critical things that you can put in place. That, coupled with conditional access, gives you the ability to have quite a bit of information and control over the environment as you put together the rest of the security landscape. We've also added interesting things to this package, and we continue to add. But the most recent ones are, app proxy, dynamic groups, and of course, cloud app discovery as I move over to the third column. The ability to defend against cyber threats and data loss is really the area of our talk. So I'm just trying to frame up where we're going to go deep here. And really, we're going to spend most of our time in information protection, data leakage protection, and how that actually connects into, say, Teams or other environments overall. And then, of course, on the far right, we have the ability with Intune coming in this package, is the ability to manage devices, both mobile app development as well as device development, coupled with some very interesting offerings that have autopilot and Windows Virtual Desktop. And of course, Windows also comes with standard AV, and that is included in this package as well. So that's a quick summary of sort of the product offering. But as we think about that product offering, there's also much more than product. One of the things that we have learned in being able to engage with many partners such as yourself is that one of the ways partners make the most amount of money is to have the most amount of managed services. So partners that have 4 or more managed services going to market have a really, really good opportunity to make a lot of money compared to their peers. The making the money is important, but you're also able to transcend that into higher value to your customers and less churn. So it's not about getting one service to market, it's about how to. And M365 Business Premium is a fantastic platform to be able to get you from one service to be able to add on additional services. Get your customers to a place where you can manage their risk for them. And I think the far right one is really about, there's an outcome of this that is just natural as you become more mature in managing all of these, that operational cost and complexity tends to go down when you focus on a very integrated suite. Okay, now we get to the meat of this. And the meat of this conversation, and the fun thing I get to do is partner with David on this. And one of the things David did is he built this blog. And this blog really focused very much on checklist for SMBs. And he works with partners every day. And so a lot of the advice came from you. And he did a great job of pulling it together and giving some great guidance. The area we're going to talk about that I'll reinforce again is really information governance. And we'll talk about putting together sensitivity labels and data leakage and protection areas and the benefits of doing that and some of those experiences. Experiences not only for you as admins, but experiences for your customers as well. And so there are several sessions that will talk about this SMB checklist in different areas, identities, et cetera. And so I encourage you to look at those as well as this overall checklist link. So with that, I kind of want to step through and bring David online. And we're going to go through the first part of this, which is really about information governance. And if you see that, on the left, really thinking about data loss prevention, email encryption, retention policies, and sensitivity labels. David, kind of give me your ideas on what we want to show the audience today with regards to DLP.
Sure, Tim. And just set a little context. What we're talking about here is making sure that corporate data or, your customers' data stays with the company. We can all imagine a scenario where, a company has spent a lot of time and energy cultivating a star employee, say a star salesperson. And, if that person leaves for a competitor, in the past, we'd have to hope that she wouldn't take her email with her and other things like that. And many times that was true, but we're depending on, people acting appropriately at all times, which doesn't always happen, unfortunately. So when we use technology such as DLP or sensitivity labels, we're actually able to maintain control of information. We don't have to worry about people leaving with things they're not supposed to take with them or share things inappropriately, and it puts the owner of the company back in control of all the information and keeps it safe. And probably one of the more straightforward ways to do that to get started is with data loss prevention. This prevents sensitive data, things like credit card numbers, passport numbers, driver's license IDs, easily identifiable pieces of information from being inadvertently leaked out. So, for example, if someone puts a credit card number, in a form and that form happens to get emailed outside the company, we can inform the user, hey, this has, credit card numbers in it. Tell them what the policy is, and then configure it how we want to, whether we just want to block it outright or, leave the final decision in the hands of the user. It's really up to the admins. And so if the way we laid out this checklist is to list all the things partners should think about And then we're going to give you a set of recommended settings across two scenarios. The first being kind of your typical customer, and the second being a customer with a higher concern for risk or lower tolerance for risk. Might be a law firm or healthcare clinic or something like that. So in this case, we're recommending the default policy that comes with DLP for all customers, and then getting very specific for customers with higher degrees of risk. GLBA for a finance firm or HIPAA for a doctor's office.
It's really interesting, David. I ran into a situation even recently where we hired a new employee, and when she came on board, she had great access to data, and I needed some of that data to complete one of my projects. And I asked her to email me, the spreadsheet. And when she did, she was having a hard time getting it to me. And I thought, well, maybe it's a new employee, they don't know what they're doing. But it turned out that the deep inside of that data was PII information. And so then she tried to send it through Teams, and it didn't work. And then she tried to go through email, and it didn't work. And so it was great. So it's not always just bad actors. It's actually helping people who are trying to do what they think is the right thing, but there's policies that have been in place that are enforced. And then, of course, then I just had to tell her this is the information that I wanted. She went off and acted upon it. So this is a great piece of technology that we provide that helps the good people as well as protects those that are bad actors.
Yep, exactly. That's a very good point. This is designed to help your employees do the right thing. It's not necessarily a solution that is going to, keep cyber criminals out. We have other technology for that, but what we're talking about here with information governance, we're trying to manage our information, manage how our employees behave with it, and then encourage and enforce correct behaviors. Great.
So, do you want to get in and just look at some of these, and let's just live it for a moment?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to pick two things off the list. Let's show how easy it is to get started with DLP. Right. This is a piece that's often confused, new or admins new to DLP. So we've made it super simple to get started. And then I'll touch on probably the most important item on this list is sensitivity labels. And the reason that's important is, we're no longer all working on a corporate network behind a firewall with, brick walls to, protect information. We're really, most employees are now working anywhere across a multitude of devices they may own or maybe outside the direct control of the company. And so sensitivity labels are it's a newer technology, a cloud-first technology that allows us to, identify sensitive information, protect it with encryption, and make sure that encryption is applied no matter whose device that file ends up on, no matter where it goes or who it might be emailed to, or if it's put on a share we don't control or file system we don't control. So here I am in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. To get started with DLP, I'm going to click on Setup in the left-hand navigation. So bring me to the M365 Onboarding Hub. I actually have several different wizards I can interact with to set up sign-in security. For DLP, we're going to browse to Privacy and Compliance and click on Set Up Data Loss Prevention. I can read all about it here, and when I'm ready, click Getting Started. And notice here I am prompted to protect different types of sensitive information types, such as US Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, etc. I can check or uncheck these as needed. I'm also prompted to, by default, show a policy tip to inform the user about what's going on here, as well as set a threshold where I, as the administrator, should get an email if someone has exceeded the threshold of sensitive information instances by 5 or more. When I'm happy with all the settings, which I'm fine with these as it, it's going to click Create Policy to set up DLP. And that's it. We're done. If I want to interact with this policy or customize the policy, now that I've run the wizard once the first time, I can simply click Manage from the Onboarding Hub. Here's the policy I just created. I can open this up and interact with it to customize it if I want to, or create a new policy from scratch.
It's cool, David. So those are definitely the standard ones that many people would use. How about if I want to create something that's unique, maybe to my business?
Yeah, sure, Tim. Let's say you're in healthcare and you want to create a policy that covers, ICD-10 codes, for example. So we create a new policy. These are grouped by common compliance areas such as financial and medical and health. Since we're in healthcare, we're going to click this and we'll go find the predefined option that's most appropriate for us. So in this case, I'm going to pick U.S. Health Insurance Act, HIPAA, and notice that this is going to create a policy for personal identifiable information as well as medical terms, or ICD-9 diagnosis codes. I can give it a custom name if I want to. I can choose where and how to protect email. In this instance, I want to protect the content across email, Teams, chat, OneDrive, SharePoint, etc. I can use advanced settings if I want to play with thresholds and the percent match criteria. This is not normally something I need to do, so we're going to go right past it. Notice I'm also prompted to turn on policy tips. If I want to customize the tip and tell the user something different, I have that option. And you can do that here. And I have the option of testing out the policy, turning it on right away. And that's it. There's a custom DLP policy that will pick up PII as well as medical terms.
That's really great. This is a super example, in my opinion, of giving partners the ability to create a unique managed service around data. It's a great way to engage deeply with their customers, understand more about their business and the kind of data that has some sensitivity in sort of a consulting environment, and then set some policies, monitor some compliance against those policies, and anything that goes against those policies. This is really cool.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot more that can be done. DLP is usually a first step, but we also have the opportunity to create labels for content and protect that content. So for example, if I want to allow my users to mark any content, emails, and files as confidential and encrypt that content, it's actually fairly easy to set up, and it's one of the more important information governance techniques that we can use in M365.
So can we talk about sensitivity labels a little bit?
Sure thing. So here I am again in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. On my left-hand navigation, this time I'm going to browse down to the Compliance Admin Center and open it. Once the Compliance Admin Center opens, on my left-hand navigation, I'm going to browse again, show all, and choose Information Protection. When the Information Protection Solution area opens up, notice that I'm prompted to turn on the ability to process content and online files. This is super important. If we apply encryption to files that are stored in Microsoft 365, so SharePoint and OneDrive, we require the ability to reason over that data. So things like the online apps, online Office apps work. We also need co-authoring to work properly and e-discovery and things like that. So one of the first things I need to do is turn this on. It's very simple. Then to get started with sensitivity label, we're going to create a label. I'm going to fill out the wizard here. So we'll create a label called confidential. I recommend using labels that your users will easily understand. I'm going to give a description for the users so they have a little help when they hover over this label. In this case, we're just going to tell them data is classified and protected. I'll use that same description for the admins. The whole point of using a confidential label is to actually apply protection, so the data is encrypted no matter where the content goes. It doesn't matter if it's stored on a flash drive or sitting in someone else's cloud service. So in this case, I want the user to assign permissions. The intent of this particular label is to allow the user to send the data and files and emails to people outside the company. So I'm going to choose this one. We'll enforce do not forward within Outlook. We'll also allow the user to set individual permissions like do not copy, do not print, etc. We have the opportunity to add marking to the content. If I would like to add a watermark, in this case, I want the watermark to say Contoso confidential. It's important to note this actually adds the watermark without modifying the text that the user enters of the document. It's actually metadata that's added to the document to display and print the watermark. Okay, we don't need auto labeling in this case. We want the users to choose when to use it, and that's it. Once we've created a label, there is one more step. We have to publish it. And the reason is sometimes we want like a 2-level hierarchy. So once we've created all the labels we want in a given session, we're going to go ahead and click the link to publish a label. You can choose which label to publish. We only created one, so it's very simple. Next, I'll prompt it on who to publish this to. This one I want to go to the entire company. So I'll leave this in with the default settings. We're not going to automatically apply this to documents and email. I want the users to choose when the data needs to be protected and marked confidential because they know best. We'll give a name to our policy. And that's it. Sensitivity labels are now configured in our organization.
That's fantastic. You know, as people really move to collaboration, and obviously partners delivering collaboration as a service, this really helps them get to safe and secure collaboration just overall. It's quite good. I think we should also look at Teams just for a moment, just to make sure we have the right set of settings put in place, because obviously that's a major channel and built on top of SharePoint. So if we set a couple of things right in Teams, along with these data elements that we've put together, we can feel pretty confident that data is protected in our environment. So if you can swap to the Teams view, that would be really great.
Sure thing, Tim. Yeah, it's important to note the information protection policy I just created and DLP pulls through to Teams. So Teams sort of inherits this, so to speak, but we do cover Teams separately in the checklist. And the reason is, even though Teams out of the box is secure and many of the default settings are appropriate, I believe it's still important to talk through these settings and possible implications with your customer. So number one, you're sure you've thought of everything and they're more confident that they've thought of everything. So to get to Teams, we're back in our Microsoft 365 Admin Center. I'm going to scroll down to my admin centers and pick the Teams Admin Center. Once the Teams Admin Center loads, there's a lot of settings we can work on here, such as meeting policies, etc. We won't have time to go through all those today, but the important ones are noted in the checklist. I do want to talk about a couple, though. So on the left-hand navigation here, I'm going to open up org-wide settings. And these are some of the first things you want to focus on. And let's talk about guest access. By default, guest access is turned off, but if you read through my checklist, you'll notice that we recommend it to be turned on. And some folks have asked me about this and said it's a bit counterintuitive. You know, said if we're trying to configure a highly secure environment, why would I want to turn guest access on? And the reason is this: is in almost all organizations, there's a requirement to collaborate with external parties. If we turn guest access on, that allows us to collaborate with external parties in a secure collaboration platform. That means I can invite certain specific people into specific teams, give them access to specific things. And the reason this is secure is that everyone coming in is authenticated. If you require MFA, these identities will require the same policy. And it gives people a place to work that you can control. You can run e-discovery on, you can run DLP, and put all these organizational controls around it, which is much better than allowing the users to find their own ways of collaboration. Because if it's not provided for them, they generally will find a way to share. And in that case, the information is being shared without any visibility to the organization or any of the controls we want to put in place. So to turn guest access on, it's as simple as flipping the toggle. And then you'll notice once it's turned on, we do have a bit more granular control. So for example, if we do want to prohibit guests from making private calls, for example, we can turn that off.
Great. Any other settings we should consider inside of there?
Yeah, there's another one I like to talk about. Sometimes customers get confused between guest access and external access. So guest access is providing the ability to invite specific people to participate in a team as a guest. So they can see the channel, they can access files and things like that. External access only covers the ability to chat outside of the organization. So with external access, if we use our default settings, any two companies or individuals from any two companies can discover each other by the email address and initiate a chat, which is very handy for business partners and other folks. Tim, let's say you were a Microsoft partner and you wanted to get a hold of me and chat for something urgent and you only knew my email address. Through Teams, you could enter my email address and chat and start chatting right away. And for many organizations, that's totally fine. It may not be fine in all cases. Let's imagine, if you will, working for a very large OEM manufacturer and the support organization has a very specific process by which customers are allowed to interact with support resources. You may not want to allow external access, which thereby would allow customers to bypass that internal process. So you might want to turn this off or name specific domains that are allowed, unrestricted chat.
Okay, thanks, David. Those were some really great demos, and thank you very much for doing those live. It really makes a big difference for us to actually see the performance and just see everything in context. So just kind of as a recap, what David talked about was really this checklist for security of remote work. And that's published at the link there that's shown. And David did a lot of the work behind the scenes to pull all that together. So it's really great work. There's also other information, which I talked about, at a fast clip about Microsoft 365 Business Premium. And at the link, aka ms/m365bp, there's a wealth of information that you can get on that website overall that will go deeper into each one of those features that I really talked about. And of course, you can also reach out via the tech community at the following link, SMBTC. David, always great to work with you. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. And you as partners, thank you very much for supporting the SMB community in such a rich way. I encourage you to take M365BP for a spin and think about it in helping to secure your customers' environments, but also think about it in how you can build additional managed services, which gets you to that higher profitability, but also get your customers to a higher security level, which drives just overall operational maturity. Thank you, everyone, again, and it's been really great to chat with you.
Thanks, everyone.